Well, hello, Gatun and Yom. So, considering our tight schedule and different time zones, I thought I'd take a few minutes to kind of go over what are some of the changes that have happened to that have made to this worksheet, and then kind of give you a small assignment to follow up with in the morning when you come into work. All right. Well, a couple things. What you're going to see here is I've decided to change the exchange rate to 34. We can play around with that as we get to our final numbers. But I chose 34 because that's what we found out the JLP and DISA was doing. Gives us a little bit extra space than what we were using. The other big change on that exchange rate is I have now linked it over to the target parameter sheet. So you'll actually see, and I've used that same exchange rate. I've decided to do that because I want to make sure our loan guarantees kind of align to each other. Plus, it's probably time we now use 34. It's going to throw off some things, possibly with our life of project indicators, but we'll have to manage that with time. I thought the trade-off of having, at this point, our budget and our target parameters, and therefore our dip aligning was what we're going to have to work with. Okay, going back to the costing table, a couple of new cells here. You're going to see we're looking at different types of no guarantee fund. So depending on where or whom a FSP may work with will determine what they get. So if they're working their usual populations, they get 25%. If it's an underserved Cabelli, it could be 35%. If it's an underserved population, especially the disabled, that would not lend to, typically we'll give them 100%. Then we are looking at entrepreneurship grants, 100%. And then I did go through the narrative and try to identify areas that were kind of intensive, resource intensive. So like the poultry voucher, but I haven't really put that into our system. I'm not sure if we're going to have time to do that. And frankly, we don't have the resources at this point. Okay, well, as we kind of go through here, nothing else to really report on. We have this section in yellow. I'm not sure why we retained it in yellow, so something maybe for you to look at. Let's go back up to the top here to make sure there's nothing else. Oh, yes, we did actually. There's one of the expenses I realized is we haven't accounted for was adult literacy facilitators, so we need to include that. We had the printing cost, which we said was a bit high. I agree. It's an area we can come back to when we look at our budgeting. Also note that I did put in here based on salary band provided by HR, not actual. That's in the event if anybody says, well, wait a second, is this the real person's salary? No, it's just right now examples by bands. For budget details. For budget details here, you're going to notice a couple things. One is we still had this in yellow. Can't recall why we had it in yellow, so please take a look at that. Printing again was another one that was highlighted. We looked at activities here. You'll see what I've included before. One is to save some money. We did have a 5% contingency. I have removed that and put that down to 0%. When it comes to our partners budget, I've included adult literacy facilitators. Again, for us to come back and look at. This course a bit higher, but once we get the numbers from Testify, we'll change that. A loan guarantee fund. So this again is the place we're going to be running into most of our expenses, or potential ones. Not that unreasonable, but still quite a bit there, actually, considering the resources we have available. And I'll talk about this in a second, how we come up with these particular numbers. All right. I've also included a line here on innovation fund. I realized we hadn't included that for some reason. And I should have also put this here using the POET code for cost shares. One of the places that you'll see that I did make it, well, I cut completely was the crisis modifier money. And that was just with our expenses going up on our livelihood group, not our livelihoods, our loan guarantee funds going up. it was not possible at this time. So we'll just have to leave this blank and let USAID know that if we need to respond, that we'll need additional funding. A couple other things. This one I'll be doing a discussion about tomorrow. I've shared this with a few people, but what it's coming down to, if we want to hold ourselves accountable to number of people who are graduation ready, we need to make sure that we know what that means. So right now, the target is 18,375. So with that being the case, we need to make sure that one of the key assumptions we're going to make is that to graduate, you need access to some type of external finance. So here we have this idea of, backed by project, not backed by project, livelihood PS&P, and youth entrepreneurship. So we definitely will get to our 20,000 here. And we could debate how we want to include or not include the livelihood transfers. This is one reason that our innovation fund, our loan guarantee fund is absorbing so much money, is if we want to get to that level of graduation, then this is really going to be key for us. For the DIP, I don't think there's much we need to talk about. I need to go and tidy up some things in here once we actually have agreed on some of the finances. And for the target parameters, I think we've discussed the major things that would be of interest to you. So what I would like you to do is I've included something here right now called budget summary on the budget summary. So I've kind of given you right now about 3 tasks to do, 4 tasks, kind of in this sequence. So first of all, we need to know how much money do we have left. So we know the total budget is 11.2 million, but I don't know how much of that budget that we initially put together was our budget, and more importantly, what was MCS's budget. That's important because we need to see if we have to honor that, what that's going to leave for us, a balance for us, and how we want to negotiate it. The next one we have assignment number 2, which is a cost share budget. If you could just let me know, how much have we spent to the end of June? How much do you think you'll spend this year? What about the year and the year after, so we can see how we're doing on this funding? Also, if you can let me know what are some of the major budget line items that we did budget for when we did our APP. And the last one is a small one, but right now we have this odd thing, which is, this is what our budget is, account codes, but we do have a slight difference when we actually take a look at what our actual budget is. It's not a major thing, but if you could take a look at that, Yom, if not now, we can do it later. This is a lower priority. The difference right now is such a small amount. I mean, if you can tell right here, the amount we're talking about, it's like less than 1%. If we have time to look at it. All right, so in the meantime, what I would ask is if I'm going to send this sheet over to you, if you can kind of just work on this Excel sheet in the very front and send me this. Do not look at adding with the tabs, as I still don't know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to hand this over for you guys to work on tomorrow as a country program, if I hand it over to the meal team or if I hand it over to you for you to make the final budget changes. So again, I'll see if I may send you an invite to see if we can meet tomorrow, but at least I wanted to share this information with you. Over now.